probably get is, in 10 years, how many openly gay ball players will there be in the NBA? That's the league I cover, so it's only the one I really know. And I don't know the answer to that. But I do think when you see Dwayne and you see the league in general and generally to the younger generation of players. I mean, I think that's the other thing. Reggie Bullock's another guy. His trans sister was murdered, and he's been outspoken. He's not a household name, but he is a starting shooting guard for the New York Knicks, which whatever that's worth. He's out there. So I think it's been really interesting to observe, even as we haven't had a lot of tangible success in terms of, I was hoping there'd be a couple openly gay players in the NBA. I think the league's making real strides here.
What do you think, though, the reception is to Dwayne Wade? Can you, when Dwayne Wade does this, do you feel like that's met in that world? I understand what you're saying about Adam Silver, but I'm talking about in those locker rooms. Do you think he is being met with something that feels like support?
I think outwardly, and I think there's a back channel. I had a really interesting conversation with an NBA All-Star after Jason Collins came out, and we were talking about the response among top-flight NBA players who were very supportive of him on Twitter, for instance, and in social media. And this NBA All-Star kind of rolled his eyes, and I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, it's unfortunate. He's like, everybody sounds good on Twitter. I'm at Team USA practice 2 months later, and it's still the same sort of talk you'd see. So I'm with you. Like, I think there's a back channel. I think there are a community of NBA players who, frankly, grow up, and they don't grow up in the HR. They're not going to freshman orientation at Oberlin College and getting, and being infused with the ethics of social justice, right? Like, you grow up in an AAU bubble. Like, I can't imagine that on the bus in these two-a-day tournaments, there's a lot of talk about, let's talk about sexual representation and youth these days, right? Like, so but I think that's a start, right? Like, before there's ever sheer acceptance, Dan, there's that moment where you kind of have to be outward, like where it ceases to be okay to speak in certain terms, and you can be private about it or with your friends, but I think that's just sort of the natural evolution. I imagine, and again, I'm not in those locker rooms, that there's some sort of, what is this, But I look, the fact that it's not outward, I think means something. But yeah, I'm not stupid. Like, I'm not naive. There's a back channel. There's always a back channel.
Kevin Arnowitz with us on ESPN Radio. What did you make of what the Knicks did with hiring an agent, Leon Rose?
Oh, I was going to go back to the other. All right, that's not nearly as fun to talk about as what happened on First
All right,
Take.
well, then let's do that, and I'll circle back around. So let's talk about what happened on First Take for a brand ambassador.
The brand, what's the brand? Same classic idiocy, but with new flavor. What is this doing? The brand's never been the issue, right? Like, it's not about the brand. But this team is going to make $500 million in revenue this year. The brand is doing just fine, thank you. Right? It's the crappy product. Look, I think there's been a nice model here, right? I mean, Bob Myers, Golden State Warriors GM, was an agent. Rob Pelinka, jury's still out, but can't, proof is in the pudding. It's working. An agent. And I think there's this notion that, look, diversity of experience is good. And the notion that because here's what the job is, and you know this, and it's sort of, I think 2011 really hit this in Miami. The job of a general manager is talent management. It is no longer playing fantasy basketball, figuring out the good trade. I mean, look, that stuff's important. You need to have scouts who know who to draft. You need to understand the cap. But you're in the talent management business. That's what you're doing. You are submitting to the whims of your superstars. You are surrounding that superstar with talent that will not piss him off or at least, conform to what he sees as a proper teammate. And so it's not a surprise to me that now teams, especially in big markets like New York, like Los Angeles, like San Francisco, have talent managers. That's what an agent is. He is a talent manager. Yeah, he negotiates contracts, and that's a very good skill to have, when you're kind of facing down one of your former fellow agents, in a negotiation. But I do think this is, being a general manager, you are now in the talent management business. It's not Trader Joe anymore. You're managing talent.
25-2 at home, 9-19 on the road. Can you explain the 76ers, Kevin? They have a fundamental problem, which is how do we find space
in an offensive possession. You know, they brought in Horford, a player I think we all love, but who's a 5, being asked to play the 4. They've got their 3, Tobias Harris is actually a 4. You know, everybody's downgraded. You know, Josh Richardson didn't now be a lineup, a player I like, but, you know, not a guy you would say, hey, he's going to space the floor. And why is this important? Because you have a guy in Ben Simmons who's dynamic, amazing. He is a locomotive. And by the way, he can't shoot. Which, by the way, needn't not be a huge problem, except for the fact that he needs space to drive. And when you have these big bodies looking like traffic cones in the middle of the floor, it's a problem. So,
but why?
I mean,
but why so good at home? Why 25-2 at home, and
Crazy.
then they've got the Knicks record on the road? Like, why that?
You taught me this, Dan, in one of my favorite columns ever, because sometimes basketball is random. Because sometimes it's random. Because there's going to be a couple of teams that, for whatever reason, just the way their wins are distributed, some of them are at home, a disproportionate number are at home. I mean, I don't know, the Philly, it can't be the fans, right? I mean, those people are rabid. I mean, it's like, you ever listen to talk radio in Philadelphia? It's like InfoWars. You know, so, and they're booing their star players. So I can't imagine it is they are imbued with this great confidence provided by the Philadelphia fan. But, you know, as you once said brilliantly, you know, some of this stuff's random. And I mean, I wish I had a good answer. I have no idea.
Well, those spacing issues like that's I think what's confusing to everyone. The fact that they're 25-2, they don't have those issues at home. They have them on the road.
They don't seem to have them on the road. Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm sorry. Let's go to what LeBron did last night. Stugotz ended up feeling he did the thing, as Stugotz likes to say, and Stugotz ended up feeling bad for Jokic at the end of that game because LeBron erased him.
I think what we're seeing with LeBron here is, and it was a question I asked at the beginning of the season, what does a guy look like when he has a sabbatical? I mean a real sabbatical, like doesn't play a meaningful game for 9 months after never getting a break longer than 4 months, right? Because he's old. I mean, he is by any measure, he is ancient in NBA terms, and yet he is a top 5 player, still top 3 player. I mean, let's just call it what it is. And I mean, I think it speaks to, you know, I was talking with Andre Iguodala, new Miami Heat member, and I mean, he's like, I'm ready. There's this like Swedish intellectual who goes to these TED Talks and says, everybody in America, we should create a society where everybody gets every 7th year off, because it's the only way to really regenerate yourself professionally, no matter what career you're in. And Andre's like on board with this, right? I mean, he's completely on board. And I think with LeBron, we're seeing the answer to that question, which is, what happens if this guy didn't have to play 100 and some odd games every single year and actually got to regenerate himself? Because this is uncanny. I mean, they're running away with the West on a team where LeBron historically is a the back half of the season kind of guy. LeBron's teams haven't been good regular season teams in years, and yet here we are. And it's astounding.
Kevin Arnovitz with us. We're going to let him go on this real quick because we're out of time. Just give me the number of teams that can beat Milwaukee in a 7-game series. Tell me who they are.
Clippers, Lakers, and nobody else.
Wow. Oh, the shipping container.
Man.
The shipping container is hurt. They wanted Miami as one of the answers.
One at Milwaukee without Jimmy Butler.
Oh, shut up.
Without Jimmy Butler.
Thank you, Kevin.
Whoa.
Thanks.
Dan Batard.
Do you refer to the yellow sauce at a hibachi restaurant as yum yum sauce? 57% of the audience said no.
Stugotz.
Do you go ginger yum yum, yum 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 yum, or yum 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 yum? 38% of the audience said yum 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 yum. So they get 3 yum yum sauces. They ditch the ginger, get 2 yum yums with an additional yum yum. Second place was ginger yum yum. That Chris said earlier, no one goes ginger. 18% of the audience goes ginger. And 18% of the audience also goes yum 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 yum. How about that?
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests on the Dan Le Batard Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Here's your SportsCenter update. The Nets defeated the Raptors 101-91, snapping Toronto's 15-game winning streak. The National Football League has reinstated Myles Garrett, who was suspended indefinitely after ripping the helmet off of Steelers quarterback Mason Rudolph and hitting him in the head back in November. And finally, an estimated 20 to 25% of people are immune to hangovers. Where do you need a Blink security camera? On your porch to help protect deliveries? helping keep your family safe when you travel, alerting you when the kids get home from school. Where do you need Blink security cameras? I have them everywhere in my house. You should too. Visit blinkprotect.com/Dan. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in the Sports Center on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
I am told that the shipping container has an important update on Florida Panthers night with the shipping container tonight. What is the important update?
Dan and Stu, not only is the shipping container headlined by Roy and Chris opening up the Cat's Den pregame, but I have just received word that the shipping container will be playing sumo hockey during the second intermission.
Wow.
All right.
Let me know how that goes.
Billy doesn't look in. Why is Billy?
down for this
Why
too,
is
or
Billy skeptical?
supporting us?
Billy, I think I should do that with you guys.
I mean, you're
I think-
lucky you won't need a costume.
Oh.
Because you're fat.
Oh, man, no.
I heard it the first time off the mic. Thank you, Chris.
Hammered it home, though.
That would be funny. Let's do it that way, actually. You guys are in the costume, and I'm just out there as myself. I think that's funnier visually.
I'll be in bed. Second intermission, but I'll be supporting you guys from afar.
A tweeter writes in, morning television about sports is so trash. You're telling me my best options are Get Up, awful show, First Take, unbearable, and Undisputed, not the best, definitely not the worst, with no Skip or Shannon like today. And Dan Le Batard, absolutely not. Just give me my MFN highlights.
He's that guy.
I mean, I'm pretty sure you can find them.
Guillermo, put it on the poll. Just give me my MFN highlights. Yes or no. Also put on the poll. Should Dan do the sumo wrestling thing in costume with the shipping container, or should he just do it as himself?
The redundant skill set at that point.
Morning television. You can have your complaints about it, but is that something that we are now doing in 2020 where people are starved for just their highlights? Is that... And I know that there's a push at ESPN to go to more highlights. There are sports centers all over the place.
I mean, I think if you're a sports fan, you could stay up last night. You're probably interested in the Lakers Nuggets highlights. Sure. Yeah, you can get them on your phone, though.
I
You
just
can get them
feel
anywhere.
like the ESPN News and some of these places, can't you just get highlights anywhere it is that you
It's
want
actually
them?
not that easy. Like, I'm not seeing the same sort of highlights on my phone that I used to see with the Morning Sports Center. And I know there's been a recent sort of transition to more highlight-heavy sports centers, and the ratings actually bear out that it's been a successful move.
And so that's a thing you're telling me that people want. You're telling me that this audience right here, well, not this audience. If you're listening to this, you're not somebody who wants more highlights, but you're telling me that the primary morning audience, because First Take does good numbers, and for what it is, Undisputed does good numbers. These shows do better numbers than the sports centers.
I'm not so sure about Undisputed, but I do know Get Up does well, and SportsCenter's been doing well, and First Take obviously dominates its day part.
But Get Up gives you that mix. And I guess First Take, to an extent, does as well. I mean, it's mostly opinions, but Get Up does a very good job of discussing it while giving you the highlights at the same
really
time.
Good. Get Up is a really good show.
Yeah.
I know that the usual thing, and they probably work some stuff out after the initial launch, but generally in sports, on Twitter, in society, we're all super snarky and want sort of root for things to fail initially and try to find out everything that's wrong with it. That's a damn good show they do in the morning.
Well, it came out of the box in a way that people weren't willing to, they were just not willing to give it a chance. Very often people don't allow things time to find the voice. And so over time they did the corrections, and what has been a critically panned show is now a show that is celebrated. But I'm more interested in the larger conversation. Many years ago, pardon the interruption, sort of changed the entire programming game here and elsewhere, because in a half hour you could get not only all the relevant highlights, but you could also get how to think of them. It's why it's a pioneering, groundbreaking show. It's why it continues to be the highest rated daily show that people have. It replaced Up Close, what used to be a Roy Firestone interview show. People thought it would fail. Tony Kornheiser thought it would fail. Here it is 20 years later as the standard bearer on these things, that you can go get everything you need in 22 minutes here. And